On a previous occasion, I told you as public relations students that one day in the industry, public relations practitioners and journalists and reporters actually need each other. As much as you'll sometimes hear the journalism students say, you PR students, okay? But you actually need each other, because it's a case of I'll scratch your back and you're going to scratch mine. Why? Because you need Mr. Journalist over here. You need him to get publicity for the company that you work for or for the client that you work for. And remember, publicity is for free. It's for mahala. Whereas advertising is paid for, and that's very expensive. So yes, you might say to me, but why can't the marketing department, to get recognition for our brand or for our product, why can't the marketing department just fork out some more money and buy a billboard on the highway that has the company or the product's logo or name on it? Because it costs a lot of money. Whereas on the other hand, once you get a journalist to give you free publicity about your product or your brand, it costs you nothing. How do I do that? Well, as I said earlier today, it's one of the tools would be that you invite them to a media function or a press conference. And then you give them this little phenomenon called a press kit. Now, as you can see, it's much smaller. Definitely won't take up that much space in your boot, right? But it becomes quite a handy tool. There's a saying in the world of marketing that if you want to catch a mouse, you've got to make like cheese. And the first time I say something, or I share this cliche with the students, they're like, did she just say what I think she said? To catch a mouse, you've got to make like cheese? And it is actually, there's method to that madness. Because if you want to catch a journalist, you've got to make noises like the journalism industry does. In other words, we've got to speak their language. You've also heard the adage, keep your friends close and your enemies closer. So if these journalism people are then going to say, you PR people, all you can do is throw parties and spend money, they then think that we are the enemy. So if we're going to try and keep our enemies even closer than we keep our friends, we've got to make like cheese. We've got to speak to a journalist in a journalist's lingo. And a press kit is one of those things that they appreciate. Because if you invite them to an event, whether it is a media launch, whether it is a press conference, and you give a journalist a press kit, and we're going to look at the contents of it just now, he appreciates it because you're making his job easier. You'll see on the handout that I would also give this to those journalists who could not attend my event. So most of the time when they arrive at your public relations coordinated event, you will give them a press kit at the beginning of the event. Okay. Or those who said to you or RSVP'd, I would have loved to come, but unfortunately I'm out of the province or out of the city, I'm doing another event or I'm doing another story. They really appreciate it if you can also courier them one of these. Or you could also just email them the sort of computer or technology version of a press kit. You'll see on my notes, it also says that the basics of a press kit include a news release. On page 127, you'll see there that there's 11 items in a comprehensive press kit. Okay. So it'll usually be in a folder with your company's logo on it. You might even make it for attention of the specific journalist that you've invited. They actually do appreciate it. So you'll say, you know, Joe Soap, and then the publication he or she works for. So Joe Soap means health, or Pretoria News. Okay. And then, like I said, when they arrive at the event, you'll give them this little press kit in their hand. And then you'll see that it basically has hard copies or the paper version of a number of things. Once you've given him or her a press kit, they walk off being very happy with how professional you as the public relations practitioner are. Because now you've given them something like a press release. You've given them something like a list of all the people who participated or attended the event and their role in it. Okay? So if they need to contact someone after the event, they know, oh, this person was there, these are their contact details. This public relations practitioner is phenomenal. Let's say that the event that you hosted involved a very well-known South African businessman like Mr. Patrice Motsepe. In the press kit then, it's always a good idea to give biographies of the principal or main people involved in the event. So in this case, the biography of Patrice Motsepe would be a short little summary of his life history. This one here, for example, says, Mr. Patrice Tlhopane Motsepe, BA, legal degree, LLB, is the founder of African Rainbow Minerals, Ltd, and has been its executive chairman since May 2004. And then they go on about his achievements, and they go on about on which boards or of directors he served, what kind of companies he has stakes or interests in. Okay. This makes the life of a journalist easier as well. So he could have gone and Googled the name Patrice Motsepe, but now he walks away and you've already given him that. So you're actually saving him a lot of time. Yes, Peasy.
Does the practitioner have to do all that, like type out all that stuff and get all that information for that, or does someone do it and they just...
Okay, it depends on how big your public relations department is. Or if you have your own PR consultancy, you'll probably get your junior PR assistants to do these kinds of things for you. Okay. If you're a one-man show, you're going to have to do it yourself. Okay.
Isn't it better to rather email it to the people?
Of course. Of course.
It doesn't get lost, doesn't get messed up.
True. That's a very valid point that you're making. Okay. Mpo, why would I want to give them also photos of Patrice Motsepe then?
So they can put a picture up when they're
That's right.
using the publicity.
In the old days, you would have obviously given them a black and white photograph that was mounted on proper sort of, hard cardboard with a caption. But these days, you would give them this kind of, the visuals, you would give that to them maybe on a disk or a USB or a memory stick for that matter. Okay? Because then also, it saves them the effort of having to bring along a photographer. And now already this person has a good quality image. You must just ensure that it's high quality pixels so that they can use it. It can't just be a photo that you took with your BlackBerry that's 2 years old. Right. Okay. But they really appreciate that. Let's have a look at what else you're going to put in there. You're going to put a features story in a press kit. And that is something like a feature article, either about the event or the company or the person involved. Let's say then a feature article that may have been written before or published before about Patrice Motsepe. You may have gotten this off the company's website already. You're going to give them some background information about the company. If that journalist is attending an event for this company of yours or this client of yours for the first time, it could be that it's a very young journalist who's just graduated and they've come to their first or their second event and they haven't even heard of a company like Sahara Computers before. Then basic background information saves that journalist a lot of time. It would also help that journalist now that if they're going to attend the press conference and the spokesperson of Sahara Computers is going to sort of, allow for question and answer time, that journalist can quickly scan through this document to look for what could be relevant things to ask at this press conference.
So you actually send it before the conference?
No, no. When they arrive at the conference, the journalists, you give them the press kit, or when they arrive at the event, the media launch. You also, yes, Peasy. No, please ask.
I want to go back to the feature.
Please go back.
How recent must the feature be?
I would say not older than 5 years. Not older than 5 years. Okay. Something else that you would hand or place in a press kit is something like an event schedule or program. This is, for example, a women's conference that starts at 8 o'clock and it finishes at 3:15. The journalist arrives and you give it to them at the beginning of the conference. The journalist says, oh, you know what, it's this whole day, but I, as a journalist, I've got a deadline to meet, you know. My editor wants my story by 2 o'clock. And maybe this journalist sees, but you know what, at 9:30, the main session with speaker 1 is taking place. It is now 8 o'clock. Maybe I can quickly go to the internet cafe across the road, go and work on another story of mine, and then come back and make sure that I'm here at 9:30. Because journalists are forever chasing deadlines and have deadlines to meet. So they have to stick to, time is extremely precious for a journalist. Now that you've given them an event program or schedule, they know exactly when is the most important time. And then they can say, okay, well, if I'm here at 9:30, this person finishes at 10:15, that's perfect. I can still get my story to my editor before the deadline. Something else that a journalist appreciates in a press kit is this little phenomenon called a fact sheet. A fact sheet. Now, this was part of a book launch. There was an author who launched a book, and this fact sheet gives the journalist exactly what is the title of the book, who are the authors, who's the publishers, what category does this book fall under, is there a website for the book, what was the publication date, what language is it written in, how many pages does the book have, what's the suggested retail selling price. So immediately again, you're giving the facts about this book launch or the book itself to the journalist in a nutshell. And they love that, and they will love you for that. The other thing that a journalist appreciates in a press kit is what we call a straight news story. And a straight news story is where it's written in typical journalistic language and format, and something newsworthy that maybe recently happened. It need not be about that particular event or press conference that the journalist is attending. It could also be about something that happened about a month ago that was featured on the company's website. And yes, maybe you're thinking, but could the journalists not go and look for this themselves off the company's website? Yes, I can see Dimpo's like, yeah, shaking her head. Why the hell can't they do that themselves? Okay. My answer to you, Dimpo, is that the journalist is going to appreciate the trouble that you've gone to. And that is going to increase your chances of getting some publicity. Because this journalist is going to walk away and say, oh, Dimpo is such a professional public relations practitioner. She gave me such a comprehensive press kit. She saved me so much time. That making friendships with sucking up. So true. So true. You are sucking up. Peasy?
To ask, because I mean, since they are, since you know they're enemies, right? We go through so much trouble to make them happy. So then, what happens in the case that they backstab us or they give us bad publicity? Yeah.
Okay. Well, let me tell you that to suck up to them and to be nice to them, you will reap the benefits. In fact, if something bad then does happen to the company that you represent or who's your client, if you've made such good friends in the media, the chances are that maybe they'll still publish the story about the bad news, because after all they know that bad news sells. But they might be a little bit more objective about it. They might be a little less biased. They might be a little less sensationalist about it. Why? Because they know, you know what, that Vuyelwa who works for, let's say, Capitec Bank, she's such a professional person. Now this story about the CEO of Capitec Bank embezzling money, I'm going to do the story because my editor expects it of me. I am a journalist. I'm going to actually phone Vuyelwa first and say, Vuyelwa, can you give us your side or Capitec Bank's side of the story? I might not, as a journalist now, sensationalize the story so much. I might not. Maybe I can try and convince my editor to not put this on page 1 of tomorrow's newspaper. Maybe we can put it on page 4. Or, if my editor insists that it's page 1 tomorrow, maybe by the time it is day 3 after the story broke, that we're not going to run the story anymore. That we'll be saying, you know what, we did put the story, but we're not going to now run with it and wash all the dirty laundry of Capitec Bank. Why? Because Capitec Bank has been so helpful, nice, pleasant with us, professional with us all along. Does it make sense? Okay, so do you see the purpose of a press kit? Who needs to be the public relations practitioner's BFF? The journalist. Thank you very much.